Welcome back to Porcelain Peak, a strange and scary podcast featuring chop talk trivia and deep dive main discussions into the odd and unusual. I'm one of your hosts, Tone. I'm joined by John.
Okay, I'll take.
Oh, no, I'm just kidding.
So I'll take John.
I'll give it to you this time. And Anthony.
Did you guys hear that Paranormal Activity a minute ago?
Yeah.
That like weird ooh? Yeah. What was that?
I don't know. Check the footage.
Roll a tape.
This week we are continuing with Found Footage February. It feels like it's been 2 months. It's crazy. And we're talking about Paranormal Activity and, I don't know how to pronounce it, Noroi?
Noroi the Curse.
The Curse. So stay tuned.
Not to be confused with Ju-on the Curse.
That was very confusing for me. But we'll talk more about that when we get to that part of the episode. So for now, we'll get started with that chop talk.
Why don't you take an axe and chop it open?
Well, fellas. Good to be back, huh? How you guys feeling?
I feel fine.
That's great. Anthony,
Well,
happy to be here.
I'm still the only one of the three of us that hasn't come down with a potentially deadly virus.
He's over here
that's
like,
supposed
scoreboard! I got two.
I do, yeah. Coincidentally,
Like the same
the
weekend.
first time I got COVID, I got it during Super Bowl weekend. My friend had it, I didn't know, and we hugged. And then I came home with it. And then this year was a week before. Or days before. Not even. So I was like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah, I feel like
Football!
next end of January, you're going to be getting real nervous about what that February is going to bring.
You're like, I'm going to live in a bubble for the next 4 to 5 weeks.
Honestly, for a while, though, I didn't even think I really had it because I got sick one day pretty hard where I was like, I want to die. And then after that, I was fine. But I just was testing positive. So I had to stay home. But I was like, whatever.
Well, it was when I had it. It was similar for me. I had 2 or 3 days where I was just miserable, and then also I woke up the next morning and I was like, I could go back to work right now. I feel fine.
Yeah, I could have went back to work a week ago, and I would have been fine.
Maybe that's why I haven't really been hit by it, is because I'm always miserable and I'm always on a sick one. So I'm just immune.
Yeah, but anyway, it's good to be back. We hope that you didn't miss us too much out there.
I do want to give a quick shout out to the Horror Cafe podcast. They have been really awesome about messaging us on Instagram and asking us when's the next Found Footage February episode? And they were really into our previous Found Footage episode. They're big Found Footage fans. I had multiple different people ask if we had seen Hell House LLC.
We have seen it.
Fuck yeah, we would be covering it in this month if we hadn't already talked it to death in previous episodes.
Yeah,
but,
I'm a big fan of the first two of those.
Yeah, both Steven and the folks over at Horror Cafe were like, what about Hell House? And we're like, trust us. Somewhere in our back catalog, we've talked about Hell House in one of our terror tales. I'm not sure which, but
as far as a found footage film, it is perfect.
Yeah, but
we had fucking 5 out of 5.
We did have people reach out, not total crickets about us missing a week, but I hope that you guys enjoyed. If you checked it out, our little Saw 1 through 3 roundup, like I said on Instagram, if you dug hearing us talk about those first 3 Saw movies and you want to hear our high to very low opinions of the rest of the franchise, then we literally just finished recording our episode on Saw 3D 7, the final chapter, The Traps Come Alive.
And Saw 6.
And Saw 6. So head on over to our patreon.com/porcelain peak
and join the creep cult.
Join the creep cult. $5. You can get all the rest of them episodes. But yeah,
super fun stuff.
Cool. You guys want to play some news catch up?
Oh my gosh, so much.
So excited. What have we missed in the world? I actually tried to trim this down because I felt like this could go on forever with how much stuff has happened or feels like it's happened in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So just the real big important stuff.
Ant-Man's out.
Ant-Man and the Wasp. Quantumania is out. I have heard very mixed things. I'm probably still going to check it out just because in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. I'll check it out.
It has all the same problems that we all have said about the rest of them, where it's episodic, stakes are low, but it was entertaining. It's a Marvel movie.
It's visually beautiful. Like I said, because we get the quantum realm, it does all of the fun things that the quantum realm does. And Jonathan Majors is a fucking showstopper.
That's what I've
part,
heard from that's how I felt about the little bit of Loki he was in. I was like, yeah, this guy's gonna kill it. And,
it's worth the price of admission, like pre-matinee, just for that.
Well, what I did is, so a lot of people on the internet have been talking about how they're tired of the MCU. Like a lot of people are jumping ship at this point and saying like I'm pretty done with it. A lot of people are trying to figure out exactly where the issue comes from, because for a while the complaint with Phase 4 was it doesn't feel like any of this is servicing the bigger story. And then from what I've heard, again, I haven't seen Ant-Man yet, people are then conversely complaining that this one feels like it's only there to service whatever the bigger story is and doesn't necessarily hold up as its own movie and is more like trailer for things to come.
They haven't. Now, a lot of these movies don't hold up as their own movie, but I will say that this feels like an Ant-Man and Wasp movie. It doesn't feel like, what the fuck was that?
Well, so what I've been doing to kind of try to see if I could pinpoint why personally these movies haven't resonated with me the same is I went back and I rewatched Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp, and I thought they were both really entertaining. And also there were things in those movies where I was like, oh shit, that's coming back in Quantumania. I know just from what I've seen. Like, so, you know, it still impresses me to go back and see in these movies that they are laying breadcrumbs even when you don't necessarily pick up on the fact that they are. And then I also went back and I rewatched Captain America the First Avenger, Winter Soldier, and then I watched the original Avengers last night. And all great movies. But one big thing that I noticed with them is that they feel like they are shot in real places a lot of the time. And I think that's I'm not a big, like, obviously I loved Avatar Way of Water, but that also
we're living on a green screen.
Yeah. And it's just like, I don't know how much I'm into an Ant-Man. I mean, again, I'll have to see it. I don't want to keep going on about a movie that I haven't seen and making judgments about it, but
I wasn't mad about it. But I wasn't blown away. It's at this point, it's like, yeah, Marvel's getting away with it, so you either got to be okay with it or not. And I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
I had
laughed.
fun.
I cried.
Yeah.
Cool.
I didn't cry.
Well, my plan is to probably check it out this weekend, so I will give you guys maybe a little bit better idea of how I felt about it and where my feelings lie about the MCU in general.
It just feels directionless, and everything in Phase 4, and including parts of this, are setting up, like, replacements. You know what I mean? Like, we got a replacement for Hawkeye. We got a replacement for Captain America. We got a replacement for Black Widow. Now we have a replacement for Iron Man. Now we're going to get a replacement for Ant-Man probably. So it's just like, I get what they're doing. I think you mentioned it. It's like now we're redoing Phase 1 to now get the next Thanos. And it hasn't felt like they're connected in a lot of ways. And so now this feels like they're starting to go somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, and also something interesting that I hadn't really thought of until I was reading the production of the original Avengers movie is that while it may seem like they had everything planned out for those first couple phases, like from the get-go, the whole Thanos being the big bad in this was Joss Whedon just wanted to randomly do that for the post-credit scene because he was a fan of Thanos in the comics, and he was like, well, who should we have be like behind Loki's whole attack on New York? And he was like, well, I like Thanos. And he just pitched it in the studio. Was like, yeah, okay, sure. So they put a little Thanos cameo at the end. And I think a lot of people looking back would think, oh, well, they were setting up Thanos and the Infinity Gems all along. And it's like you read interviews with Jon Favreau and he was like, yeah, when I made my Iron Man, I was just thinking about Iron Man and setting that in like a kind of realistic world. And he was like, I didn't think Avengers was going to work because I thought we did such a good job of setting up this world that Iron Man exists in, and now you're going to throw in magic and gods and all this stuff. And obviously, people have a lot of opinions, including myself, on Joss Whedon being a piece of shit. Mm-hmm. But as a creator, I mean, it's pretty fucking incredible what he was able to do with setting all of that. Really, a lot of that is him coming in and setting all of that up. So, it's hard. And also, this is the 31st Marvel movie.
That's fucking crazy.
I don't know how you can really expect for them to be going with as much steam as they were 10, almost 15 years ago. But sliding over on the other side of things, like you mentioned earlier, Super Bowl Sunday happened. There were a few trailers that came out. The biggest one The most important one is the Flash.
Yeah, did you go watch the full trailer?
Hmm?
Me too.
Yeah, I
Immediately.
was going to ask if have you checked it out?
I
Mr.
watched it
Don't
when
Watch
I watched
Trailers?
it when it played in front of Ant-Man because I
Ooh, okay.
I was like, well, I'm not going to sit here because I know there's also a Guardians trailer coming that I chose to not watch.
I didn't watch the new one that came out during the Super Bowl. I've only still seen the one that came out a while ago.
So I was like, I'm not going to sit here for the next like 6 minutes and cover my eyes and ears. So I was like, I'll just watch the one for the Flash. And I'm a little disappointed that we already know about the presence of Michael Keaton. Like I know that they said that he was going to be in it, but like I would have loved for
if
them
they
to
had tried to pull something like they did with No Way Home,
I would have stoked
where
on
we
that.
all kind of suspected and were pretty sure that those characters were going to show up in No Way Home, but then it still felt like a surprise when it happened because they tried to keep it secret. And this, it's like, no, it seems like they're really just, even the poster for the movie is the Flash this tiny on the poster, like turned away, and then it's the Bat plane and the Bat cave, and this is basically just the Michael Keaton Batman movie, and the Flash happens to be in it. But
See, I was surprised that they show a different metahuman, where I was like, oh, I didn't know that character was going to be in this, so I would have liked to not see her.
yeah, I mean, I think most people know so much about this movie because of the stuff with Ezra Miller and
Right.
what they've been going through, and the studio's still standing by. If they get their shit together, then they could potentially continue as the Flash. You can see from this trailer why it was not an option for them to try to get rid of Ezra Miller, because they play multiple Ezra Millers in this movie. It seems like the entire thing is going to be like a buddy movie of 2 or more Ezra Millers. So there's that.
Sounds like a nightmare. Like if you're talking about real life Ezra Miller.
Well, and honestly, those were the parts of the trailer where I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this, because I'm not really an Ezra Miller fan, and not even necessarily like, there's the whole obviously personal stuff with Ezra Miller, but then also I've never been a big fan of Ezra Miller as the Flash in any of these movies. I've always felt like they were kind of just like hammy and poorly written, and it could be different in this
The
movie.
Arrowverse
But
Flash is better.
yeah, but it was cool to see Keaton back. And when he walks up and of course does his big fan service, like, yeah, I'm Batman. And I mean, he fucking looks like Batman. Like, it's cool to see, and they got the suit right. Like,
you think they would have figured out like he's still rubber suit, like
Yeah, after how many years, motherfucker still can't turn his head? Like, I was like, come on.
well, I think it's just because they didn't want to stray too far away from the recognizable Batman suit. Like, yeah, it is a slight adjustment when you look at him in comparison. It seems like it's kind of a combo between the '89 version and the Batman Returns version. But yeah, so we get that, and then he immediately like dives off of a thing and turns into a crazy CG Batman. And I was like, you really want me to believe that the Keats is able to the Keats can perform all these feats.
Keaton could do all that.
So we get that. We also get a confirmation that we're getting multiple Batmen in this movie. 'Cause
Yeah.
we have quite a bit of Affleck looking sick and tired. Like, literally, he just
Yeah.
looks very skinny, and
he's like trying to keep up with J-Lo is a nightmare.
and those shifts at Dunkin' Donuts have really worn him out.
That shit was pretty funny.
Yeah, it was
But
a
we get
little funny.
we get a minor little glimpse of him in a blue and gray, like, classic Batman outfit, which I'm very excited about. And then outside of that, we get some hints that this potentially could be going all the way back to Man of Steel, because it looks like Michael Shannon is back, baby, as Zod.
Zodden.
And I'm always happy to see Michael Shannon, so I'm not too upset about that. And it would be kind of cool if they literally just went back to the very beginning of the Snyderverse and somehow we're like, now we're going to erase that shit, like change it all up. So looks like that's what the plan is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to see Michael Shannon in any iteration except for whatever fucking happens to his finger in Shape of Water.
Ugh.
Ugh.
Nasty.
Nasty.
That's nasty.
I thought it was cool.
Yeah. I am, like, I think we talked about this in a previous episode. I think I'm a bit more excited about the upcoming DC stuff than I am about, whatever Marvel's doing right now. But
Except
It's the
except
devil you know
Deadpool and Blade, I'm excited about.
Yeah, it's the devil you know versus the devil you don't. And right now, DC's the devil you don't.
That was a real word salad there. So we talked previously about the fact that we are covering all of the Saw films. I mentioned this in our bonus episode, but Saw 10 officially wrapped filming and is hitting theaters this October. So
Saw 10,
be
your
prepared
seatbelt.
for
yeah, Saw 10 your seatbelts.
Say be prepared for every fucking Halloween for the next 4 years to have fucking Saw in it.
You think it's gonna pop off that hard?
No, I think it's gonna be a fucking flop, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know what makes them think that people continue to want these, but it will probably make a decent amount of money because I mean, fucking Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey is selling out theaters right now. So,
is it?
Yeah, yeah. People on Twitter are like, "How the fuck is this? Did I go to this movie and it was fucking packed?"
Really?
Yeah, and it's like because people thought it was a stupid, goofy concept, and I think a lot of people who are horror fans are just excited to have any horror in theaters. Doesn't matter what it is.
Speaking of, I started watching that Velma show.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen that?
No.
I'm aware of its existence, and I heard it was pretty bad.
I've seen enough clips from it to go, this isn't for me.
I turned it on just to have something on in the background, and I didn't hate it. I don't think it needed to be like a Scooby-Doo property because it's not really.
That's what most people have said is like, this would be a lot better if it didn't have anything to do with Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, and it doesn't really. It's just like these are characters that you kind of know. But some of it was funny.
It
was like,
looks
this isn't
gorgeous.
terrible.
The animation is gorgeous, but just
It makes fun of itself for being like a woke or whatever you want to call it addition.
So I think the problem that they're running into there though is that they're doing these things that are like, oh, the right will definitely hate this, but then they're also like, but by being self-referential and like self-deprecating, they're also kind of making sure the left also won't like it. So they're like, let's just alienate any potential audience and make something that nobody wants to watch.
But what ends up happening in that case, which we've talked about with things like Hogwarts Legacy, where, you know, lots and lots of people on the internet get very heated and argue about it. And what that does is it puts it in front of more people's eyes. And so the viewership of Velma has been pretty off the charts. And so
Really?
they're in talks to do a second season, even though the majority of people, including critics, think it's fucking awful. But HBO's like, as long as people are watching it and they're subscribing to our service, that's all that matters.
I heard recently that Hogwarts Legacy is pretty fucking cool though.
I talked to Kevin last night and he was like, dude, and I mean, I trust his opinion on Harry Potter. Like, and he was just like, dude, it's like fucking my dream come true. And I was like, well, we'll see. I also just like, I can't commit to playing video games. Like I bought Stray and I played it for like 2 hours and then I'm just like, I'm going to watch movies instead. So we talked a little bit about this in text, but we haven't talked about it on the show. I don't think. Did we talk about Dexter and all the news about around it? I think the last thing we talked about was that we thought they weren't going to be making any more Dexter New Blood.
That's where we left off.
And now it's completely 180 to where, so Showtime has now been absorbed by Paramount in the continuing weird monopolization of streaming. But their new plan is they were like, hey, Yellowstone and all of its spinoffs have done gangbusters for us. So we're going to now take all of our big properties and we're going to make a bunch of spinoffs of them. So with Dexter, we're getting a Dexter Origins show, allegedly. There's going to be a prequel series. And I think we all kind of had the same thought of, wasn't that just all of the flashback sequences in Dexter?
Yeah, I know Dexter's Origins.
Yeah,
that was part of the.
We
first
saw them
season,
in detail
then,
through many seasons. Yeah,
so I don't.
Now, are we getting Origins? Like, are we getting like him and like growing up, living with Harry and Deb and all that shit, or are we getting like when we open up to the very first episode of Dexter and he goes to put the first blood slide that we see away and there's already like a group of like 20 or so blood slides in there.
But we even
is that what we're getting?
We even see some of those because we get the flashback of his first kill, which is like this nurse lady with these cats.
Yeah, and he's got he has like the hair like yours right now.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that would be cool is if it's Dexter Origins, but it's the origin of the killers from the show. Like, let me see young Trinity.
So that's the other thing is they are supposed to be making a Trinity Killer origin show that does show the origin of the Trinity Killer.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are like, well, I mean, the thing I like about Dexter is Michael C. Hall. Yeah. And I mean, really, if they tried to do a Dexter origin, all they would have to do is just put a backwards cap on him. And, and boom, instantly 10, 20 years younger. Which is pretty much like you joked what they did in the show with putting him in like the wig. I love when they do that.
Yeah.
in movies and shows. But yeah, and then we're also supposed to be getting more Dexter New Blood following Harrison and his continued adventures doing something.
I'll watch it. I mean, New Blood was okay. It was better than like season 8, I'd say.
If I'm gonna watch any of them, it would be maybe a Trinity show, but New Blood, because they could bring Michael C. Hall back as a Dark Passenger.
Yeah,
and that would be the reason.
And that's the idea that we were potentially excited about in the first place, and not all this other shit. But I mean, again, it's like the thing we were just saying with Saw. It's just name recognition. People will tune in because they're like, well, I mean, I liked this other thing called Dexter. I mean, really, the reason I started watching Dexter is because
Lab.
I thought it was, I thought that it was a continuation of Dexter's Laboratory. But
sorry that I saw the Matrix of the joke as it was being formed, but
it happens to us a lot. Get out of my head. So I don't know when they haven't announced when these things are going to actually go into production or happen, but it's split 50-50 between people who are just like, fuck it, give me more Dexter, and people who are like, cool, so I get to be disappointed by several more series with terrible endings. Because I think a lot of people were disappointed by the end of New Blood.
Yeah,
which we won't spoil if you.
It's the same thing as it is with. It's the same thing as it is with Breaking Bad. Like people, like there's still that like vocal minority of people that were like, "Oh no, I was totally rooting for Walter the whole time." So the way that Breaking Bad ends is upsetting.
If that was the case, you're wrong. You gotta check your brain.
Yeah,
check your
but
head.
it's the same thing with Dexter. It's like if you are still actively rooting for Dexter by the end, it's like you kind of know that he's not doing the right thing anymore, right? He's gone too far in the wrong direction.
I've gone too far
in a few places. So the only other bit of big news that I have is I Am Legend.
I heard about this.
I think we had mentioned in a previous episode that there was potential it was going to get a sequel. It's for sure getting a sequel now.
An actual sequel
to the Will Smith one with Will Smith.
Oh, shit.
And Michael B. Jordan.
As young Will Smith?
No.
Oh.
As a different character.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it is supposed to take place like a decade after the events of the previous film. It's written by the same guy, Akiva Goldsman. And
it uses the alternate ending.
Yeah, so that's the thing a lot of people were asking was, well, didn't Will Smith's character die at the end of I Am Legend? And there is that alternate ending where he survives and like helps bring the potential cure or whatever to the hideout that they go to. So in a strange move here, they're like, nope, we're going with the non-theatrical ending as like canon. And
well, it's because the studio interfered. The reason why they used the ending they did was the studio was like, no, the audiences will hate this. And they ended up going with this new kind of bullshit ending.
Yeah.
He sacrifices himself, and then the woman gets away,
yes.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've seen that.
So outside of what I just said, Akiva Goldsman has said a few things about kind of what he's envisioning for this. He said that he is a massive fan of the Last of Us TV show. Okay. And said that kind of spurred him to want to revisit this idea. And he was like, well, I mean, it'll basically be the same idea of what's the world going to look like 20 years after the outbreak or whatever, which makes me a little bit nervous where I'm like, okay, are we just going into the new
Walking Dead.
The new phase of just too many zombies?
We're skipping right over our intended vampire era.
They tried, but nobody gave a shit about that AMC show.
Yeah. And then also he said that this one is going to lean closer to the Matheson original concept of what would it be like if you realized that man is no longer no longer has a place in the world because there's now this new superior species.
Vampires.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm pumped for it.
Hopefully they drop another poster for a random ass DC movie, and then we'll get that made.
Oh yeah. That always makes me chuckle. Yeah, I mean, say what you want about Will Smith. I really liked him in the original I Am Legend. I really like that movie for the most part. It's not perfect or excellent, but I really enjoy it, especially when he's yelling at mannequins. And I love Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah.
The little bit that he showed up in a recent movie. I don't necessarily want to spoil it for people who haven't seen it, but the little bit that he showed up in a recent movie made me extremely happy. But yeah, I'm excited for that. And and having it be a direct sequel to that previous movie, that's cool. I like when stuff like that happens. And the last little bit of news I had, I mentioned to you guys, is that if you haven't checked out the Backrooms YouTube series, it's a sort of found footage style, kind of one of those liminal space, creepy online creepypasta things. Anyway, dude who made it was like 16 years old when he came out with it and is now, I believe, 17 years old. And A24 was just like, hey, guess what? We want you to direct a film version of your Backrooms thing. And he's just going to do it on his summer break in high school. Like during high school, he's just going to do it on his summer break.
That's kind of tight.
And I'm like, that's pretty
tight.
It's super fucking cool.
Yeah.
And I'm saying it's kind of tight, like as a story that we get to eventually ingest. But I think that's fucking super dope for that kid who's like, oh, I get to work with A24 and I haven't even fucking graduated yet. Mm-hmm. That's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, he's not even A18. That's crazy.
But yeah, that's pretty much all the news that I had. So I'm excited I haven't checked out the Backrooms series on YouTube yet, but I'm gonna check that out, especially since we've been talking about found footage stuff.
Yeah, and the lineup for Pasadena's Monster Palooza this year keeps growing. So we're probably going to be there, at least a couple of us. So if you want to join us in Pasadena, I think it's in June.
Yeah, June 2nd to the 4th.
Bruce Campbell just said that he's coming, and Doug Jones is going to be there.
Doug Jones is going to be there.
So those are new to line up.
Kane Hodder, Robert
Englund. Yep. So if you want to come hang out with some Porcelain Peak boys, then that would be a place to do it. But we're going to be like fanning out. So
we'll be wearing the shirts that say God's favorite podcast.
QR code here.
Anything else?
No, that news went on longer than I expected, but hey, it has been a couple weeks. So
Right on. Well, that's going to wrap it up for Chop Talk. We'll go ahead and get started with that trivia.
That Christmas house of wax, the fog, piranha. It's one of those, right? Right?
Oh no.
Trivia!
All right, before we get down with Trivia Pursuit, we had a bonus trivia question a few weeks ago. You want to remind us what that is, Anthony?
Yeah, a long time ago in a trivia far, far away. I asked you guys what was as far as I could find in my research, what was the first or at least earliest that I could find, again, found footage film. You guys had some guesses that we're not even going to attempt to remember, and I don't listen to our episodes. So the answer is a 1961 found footage feature called The Connection. This was directed by American experimental filmmaker Shirley Clark. It was her first feature, and it is the first known movie shot in the found footage format and beginning with a found footage title card.
Dude, there's been so many F words in that sentence, in that series of sentences.
For fuck's sake, found footage February. So this week's trivia question, and hopefully we don't go another 2 weeks before we get an answer to this one, since we are going to be talking about...
I have second COVID.
Long COVID. So since we're talking about paranormal activity in our main discussion today,
Yep.
And there is a Ouija board, my favorite game, featured in the film, I wanted to ask a little trivia question about where the word Ouija comes from.
The Ouija?
So there is a popular misconception that I'll give you about where it comes from, which is that it comes from the French and German words for yes, so oui and ja.
Yeah.
But that is not the correct origin from the mouth of the man who invented the board. So do you guys have any guesses for where the name Ouija
comes
might
from
have come
evil?
from?
Because the origins of evil.
I think that they used to make the
Sound
boards
science.
out of the hide of Okja.
Totally.
That's got to be it.
That totally makes sense. Yeah.
And then, so, yeah, it went from Okja to Ouija. Something got lost in translation.
I'm gonna say I'm gonna say somewhere in South America.
Okay.
What?
Do you have any reasoning for that, or just
I don't know.
closing your eyes and pointing to the
Yeah.
globe? All right.
Do you
Well,
think it's,
Throw the dart.
the word evil in a South American language, or are you just saying?
Oh no, Origins
What
of
is
Evil is the
No, I
is
know,
the
but what
Flanagan
is-
joint.
you're-
Flanagan shenanigan.
So he said, "Where does it come from?" And you're just saying South America.
Yeah.
just
Well, all right, cool. I'll say the Earth.
Well, it's actually a phrase from Mars.
our 52nd state.
All right,
Do you have an actual guess?
yeah, Akcha. That's it. I don't know.
Why would you not think that was a legitimate guess?
Sounds
Sound to me.
I'll say Peru.
Okay. Well,
You're saying it what do you, like it's a word in Peru?
It's like a Peru.
Peruvian?
Yeah,
it mostly comes from Peru.
mostly.
All right. Well, we're going to play Trivial Pursuit Horror Movie Edition. We're going to read a category, then go around in a circle reading a question from that category to each other with me to John, John to Anthony, and Anthony back to me until we crown a winner or a couple of winners. Or three
Okay,
winners.
Professor X. You got kind of like a Professor X.
You
thing
do look like
going
you
on
look-
with the blanket on. Hello, Gene. Hello, Logan.
All right, John, what's that first category?
First category is monster.
All right, and your first question in the monster category is in Alien from 1979. What character is revealed to be an android?
Oh shit.
Well, there's choices here, so I guess I'll give them to you.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Ripley, Dallas, Ash, or Kane?
It's Ash.
That is correct.
It was Ripley, believe it or not.
I don't.
I fucking hate you.
She does a skit for SNL where they're like remaking James Cameron stuff.
Yes, the Laser Cats thing. I think you sent it to
she
me.
was
Yeah.
like, believe it or not. It's so fucking funny. Good job, Sigourney. Anyway, you're on the board, sir.
Anthony, who composed the famous theme for Jaws from 1975? Jaws for the people who don't speak Johnish.
Yas. That's going to be John Williams, I believe.
It is indeed John Williams.
Oh, I didn't know that he worked with Spielberg.
Once or twice. Tone, what is the name of the pub that protagonist David Kessler visits at the start of An American Werewolf in London from 1981? It was also the name of a tavern in one of my D&D campaigns that John was a part of. Mm-hmm. Doesn't help you at all.
The Silver Bullet.
It is. Do you have a guess, John? Do you remember?
Oh, it's something lamb.
Mm-hmm. It is the
Oh,
Slaughtered Lamb.
Yeah.
Yep, there you go.
Cool. All right.
I only remember it because it was an extensive location that was utilized in the D&D campaign.
Yeah, fuck John Landis, but that's a dope movie.
All right. Well, John and Anthony are on the board. I got 0, and we're moving into
Gore/disturbing.
John and the Fly from 1986. To what giant creature does Veronica dream she gives birth?
A fly?
That is incorrect.
It's a fly of the dairy variety, right?
It's a maggot.
Oh. Oh, it's in one of the weird alternate endings where she like gives birth to a weird like
I'm not in the middle of the movie.
magical but no, I'm saying that there's an alternate ending where she gives birth to like a weird butterfly thing, like in a dream sequence.
Really?
Yeah, there's like multiple endings to that movie and some of them are like really weird and corny.
Yeah. And horny?
Probably. It's Cronenberg.
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
No, I said corny.
Oh, corn. Okay.
A maggot is the larval form of a fly, but I am fine not taking the point there.
Well,
Anthony,
Well, you
Car
didn't
says
say
maggot.
baby fly, so you maggot.
Name the director of the two first Hostel films from 2005 and 2007, who also appeared as an actor in a Quentin Tarantino film.
There you go. You got shirts named after him.
Oh yeah, man. I'm thinking that's gonna be visionary director
Hey.
Eli Roth.
And just in case you were wondering, you could also be a visionary director if you head over on to porcelainpeakshop.com and get yourself a piece of visionary director merch. You can get shirts, hoodies, all kinds of stuff. There's multiple colorways.
That's it.
Enjoy.
Shirts and hoodies.
Get
long.
our visionary director jockstrap. Tone.
I'd write that.
In The Hills Have Thighs. No, The Hills Have Eyes from 2006. What Californian city is the Carter family traveling to? I mean, which city in California has hills that have eyes, you know?
I don't know. Los Angeles.
It's San Diego, which means a whale's vagina.
I was close. Proximity. Bummer. All right. So, John, you got one. Anthony, you got
2.
Did you get that one?
Yep.
Okay.
Visionary director, Eli Roth.
Oh, that's right. And we're moving into psychological.
Indeed it is.
All right. John, what feature does the baby in Rosemary's Baby from 1968 share with his biological father? Uh-oh.
That would be eyes.
The child has demonic eyes.
He's got that big devil dog. Rosemary's like, damn, my baby's laying pipe.
What have you done with his penis?
His dick's as red as the devil's dick.
Anthony, what is the phrase Wendy finds repeatedly typed on the entire manuscript of her husband Jack in The Shining from 1980? I hate the wording of that question.
Well, luckily, I made sure when we went to the screening of this, we made sure to tell that guy who had his phone out to put his fucking phone away so I could catch that it was all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy.
It is indeed that.
Let's give a little background to my answers. Tone, in The Amityville Horror from 1979, your favorite of the Haunted House films, what character invites a priest to bless the house? And you have options. George Lutz, Kathy Lutz, or Father Delaney.
Rob Lowe. Chad Lowe.
Rob Delaney. Is
Father Delaney.
that your final answer?
Yep.
It is Kathy Lutz.
What are you going to do, huh?
Lutz, butts, coconuts.
No Lutz, no butts, no coconuts. All right, John's sitting at 2. Anthony's sitting at 3. And we're moving into paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
All right. John and the Exorcist from 1973. What is the name of the veteran Catholic priest portrayed by Max von Sydow? And I will take either first or last name. I don't care.
Father John.
Is that your real guess?
Yeah.
That is incorrect. It is Father Lancaster Marin.
Yeah. No shot.
Marin.
Anthony, in Annabelle Creation from 2017, what is the name of the character that assembles Annabelle at the beginning of the film?
It's been so long since I've seen this movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a while even.
Been a stained.
Emily.
It's Samuel Mullins.
Okay.
There's enough letters to get to Emily in there somewhere.
Yeah, just mix a few. Tone. What weapon... I just realized that I skipped a question of yours. I got the categories mixed up. So I'm going to go back to this previous question for you. Is that okay? Is that fair? Does that work?
I don't care.
In The House of the Devil from 2009.
Mm-hmm.
What Academy Award nominated director played Megan, the best friend of protagonist Samantha Hughes?
Come on, baby.
Oh, fuck.
Come on, baby.
That's no. What is her name? I keep wanting to say Gertrude Stein.
I mean, you're...
So you obviously know who it is.
Yeah, I know. Come on, baby. What is her name?
Come on.
It's the woman that directed Lady Bird.
Yeah, it literally says that here.
That's it?
Yeah.
Come on, baby.
Oh, man.
Think alliteration.
It's, fuck. I can't think of it.
Yeah, you'll get there.
No, I don't want to take a Peloton.
No, hey, let's stall.
So what if instead of Gertrude you thought Gretrude?
I don't know. I can't think of it.
It's Greta Gerwig.
There we go.
I feel so. I mean, you got literally every other detail. Like, I feel really bad not.
No,
just giving
but I
that
didn't get
to
the
you,
name. I
but
couldn't
yeah,
get it.
it's Greta Gerwig, and it says her film Lady Bird from 2017 earned her 2 Academy Award nominations.
I had the G in there.
Yeah, you did.
All right.
G unit.
Cool. Moving into Killer.
Yes.
All right. John real-life killer Ed Gein and Elmer Wayne influenced the creation of what character in the Texas Chainsaw Mascara from 1975?
That would be Leatherface.
What are you doing there?
I have Leatherface tattooed right here.
Oh, I thought you were.
I thought you were saying your
Salt
watch
on your
band is
steak,
leather.
yeah.
So
It is, yeah.
Right on. Yeah, that's
Porky and
great.
Los Dos.
You did it. Good job.
Yay.
That puts you at how many now? 1, 2, 3.
3? Yeah. Anthony, what is the name of the actor that played Dr. Samuel Loomis in Halloween from 1978?
That is Donald Pleasance.
Donald Pleasance is correct.
I always, like, in my head, I always have that moment of where I'm like, don't say Sutherland.
Yeah.
I'm just a fan of a lot of Donalds. Tone, what weapon does Maddie obtain from the villainous man in Hush from 2016?
Oh, a fucking crossbow.
Just one of them fucking crossbows. Yep, you got it.
One of them fucking pyramid cats.
Yeah. Didn't get snubbed.
On the board.
On the board. And we're moving into international. John in Train to Busan from 2016. The protagonist, Sikwu, I don't know if that's how you pronounce that, is traveling with what family member?
His daughter.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right. So
I like to call that movie Train to Bussy.
trying to bust and all.
Train to Bus it.
Zombies. So that ties us up, right?
Yeah, I think.
So this
Four
is your
now.
chance to win.
Kinky.
This is your chance to win. And it's a movie that you've seen.
No way.
In the opening scene of The Host from 2006, what chemical is emptied into the Han River, precipitating the appearance of the titular creature?
This is going to be Dr. Jekyll and formaldehyde.
It is indeed formaldehyde. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you. Tone, for your final question. The final chapter 3D. As part of a hazing ritual in Raw from 2016, protagonist Justine is forced to eat the raw kidney of what aminal?
Come on, baby.
Is it a rabbit?
It is a rabbit. Nailed
Rabbit
it.
season.
So yeah, you got a couple points on the board.
If I'm not mistaken, I think you might be on a
think I swept last.
a 2-peak streak.
Yeah, I'm on a streak. Woo!
Congratulations.
Now let's not take a couple week break so that I can keep this momentum rolling, because it doesn't feel as special.
But maybe you needed that refresh.
Yeah.
You know, that's true. Yeah, I hadn't seen literally any film that was on that card. I just made sure to watch everything that's on all of the trivia cards that's on there. So,
All right, on. Well, congratulations, sir, on your win and your streak. And
Thank
that's
you.
going to wrap it up for trivia. We're going to take a little break, and then we'll get started with our main discussion, talking about Paranormal Activity and Noroi the Curse.
you want to see something really scary?
Join the Creep Cult. $5 a month at patreon.com/porcelainpeak for exclusive content, merch discounts, and more. Join the Creep Cult. $5 a month at patreon.com/porcelainpeak for exclusive content, merch discounts, and more.
Hey, you want to see something really scary?
Welcome back. We're going to go ahead and get into our main discussion, continuing Found Footage February.
Or
and
for short.
yes, correct. And
It's that meme with the
we're going to talk about Paranormal Activity and Noroi the Curse.
Yeah, so in which order, since you guys watched
I would say let's do Noroi because I don't have a ton to say about it.
Okay.
This
So-
movie is Japanese. It's
it
currently
is.
available on Shudder if you want to check it out.
Yeah, it's from 2005. It is directed and co-written by Koji Shiraishi. And the reason I just wanted to explain briefly, since I know a little, I heard a little bit about how you guys felt about it ahead of time. The reason I picked this movie is because Stuckman did like a video on it at one point, talking about how it was like one of his all-time favorite, scariest found footage movies. I heard a lot of people speak very highly of it, and I had never been able to get through it, which kind of makes sense now that we've all watched it. But it's very highly regarded in a lot of circles for being quite creepy. So we thought we would take a look at it, and we wanted to mix in some foreign found footage. So foreign found footage for February.
I will say there are definitely parts that are really creepy.
Yes.
I think that this movie is like a solid 2 hours and can easily be cut down to like
An hour.
good 90 minutes. Because there's sequences where I'm just like, this is dragging and we're not getting anywhere and we are not pushing this story forward.
I love the mystery, and I love that we get these seemingly separated components that we don't find out until later, piece by piece, and you have to pay very close attention to it. Find out that all of these are interconnected in a way that you didn't expect by the end of the film, and I think that concept works, pretty well. But the middle part is where you just kind of get lost in this sea of hard cut to black, and then next new thing, and it's like
Hard cuts to black to the
Yes.
point where we thought that my TV turned off. I
Yes.
was like, what just happened?
Yeah. It was just it wasn't bad in any way. And like I said, when it is creepy and when it does creepy shit, it pulls it off very, very well. I love the use of like the pigeons kind of signifying that something awful is about to happen. I think that works really well. And then obviously I love the imagery at the end and how they, I love the cutaways to these like screens full of this mask.
Yeah.
And the mask itself is just kind of like weird, uncanny, and just it makes you feel uncomfortable.
And then the kid kind of like looking like the
Yes.
That whole ending is
Nuts.
like nuts and very fucked up. It just feels like it kind of we were really just kind of spinning in circles for a solid half hour in the middle there, if not more. Where because I think the setup's really good. I love how, like you said, we touch base with all of these different elements, and you're kind of wondering how they're all going to tie together. We get a bit of background about this researcher who is like a researcher of the paranormal, and how this whole thing
Kobayashi.
and how this whole thing is, like the discovered tapes of, classic found footage. Like these are the discovered tapes of all the logs that this guy was keeping about this thing that he was investigating. And then you get like the studies of the girl who's got psychic powers and
Kona?
Kana.
yeah, and then we get like a little bit of stuff of like the creepy village and the stuff that's going on there.
It
And
feels so disjointed at the beginning, though, that for a while, I was like, why do we give a shit about all these like 12 different things?
yeah, and I think that's where, for some people, that is really going to work, and I think it's going to be for the people who really love the narrative structure of these like Japanese urban legend ghost things, because I feel like the Grudge movies are very similar in their like very all over the place narrative structure and a bunch of disparate plot lines that eventually all kind of tie
Converge at
together
the
and
end,
converge in some way. And that seems to be a very common way of telling these kind of like Japanese ghost stories. But yeah, in the beginning, there is a solid 20 minutes to a half hour where you don't really know if the movie's really started yet. You're like, because you just keep getting like new storyline. Then you have this thing with the guy with the tinfoil hat who's potentially a psychic, and we get introduced to that character and see all that stuff.
He's so
Slapstick.
strange where it almost becomes parody. And I'm like, are we supposed to be laughing at this guy? And it felt weird. I don't know. I didn't really.
But then it reminded me of like how a lot of characters in like Bong Joon-ho, even his serious movies, where it seems to be more of a cultural thing in
Japan
and in Korea and in Asian countries, where you can get away with having these more slapstick characters. It feels very anime, which makes sense.
Yes.
But yeah, he is like very over the top. And also the whole time I was like, is this like a bad portrait of a guy who has mental health issues? Like, that's what it felt like.
But ultimately, like he does help push the story forward in other ways. And so I appreciated him for doing that. And then when we finally get to this dam, lake, forest scene, I was like, okay, this is fantastic. Loved that whole sequence.
Yeah.
Very, very Blair Witchy in a lot of ways. I felt like some Ring vibes in here too.
Yeah, what I've been telling people, because I've been having conversations with people about found footage stuff, because people are really into this genre. I think I can say safely after a few of these now, and then I've seen a bunch of found footage movies. It's not really my thing. Sometimes it works really well, but overall, I tend to find them a lot of them pretty boring.
I found more success in the movies like this that do like a documentary style, because it makes more sense that the camera is present.
Yeah.
The perfect example of this is obviously one we talked about earlier in this episode, Hell House, being kind of like this like showing off these different haunts, and like it's this like group of people who are documenting what haunts are like in different places, and it makes a lot more sense. It adds a reason for there to be a camera present.
Yeah, and in this one, they at the end he drops it. It doesn't really make a ton of sense for him to have it on, but then he drops it, and then we get to see stuff unfold for a while. And I was like, okay, that I really liked, because a lot of times it's like, put the camera down. Like, what are you doing? And even in this, there's parts where I'm like, why are you filming this? But
I think that's going to be with almost every found footage movie.
Yeah, so I love that they dropped it, and then we just kind of got to watch. And I've seen that before, but I think that can work and add a little bit more reason as to why it's still going when your wife just lit herself on fire.
Well, and there's also there's a lot of media stuff in this, like that kind of lends to why he's recording all of this. There's a lot of like talk show segments and documentary segments and all this, so it's very tied into the news and the media and everything. But it's interesting. I just had this thought. It seems like now would be actually the most appropriate time to be making found footage movies, because it totally makes sense that everyone would have their cameras out constantly filming everything. Like, it's become such a problem with people at the gym and at the grocery store and all this, where like literally everybody is just always filming everything.
Yeah.
And so it's almost a shame that a lot of the like peak of found footage, I mean, it may have a resurgence, who knows, but the peak of it was kind of when it made up potentially a little bit less sense for people to always have their cameras on and on them. But what I've been telling people about this movie is that it takes my favorite element of the Blair Witch Project, which is all of the folklore, urban legend creepiness. I'm always a sucker for anything that's urban legend related or folklore related. I always find that stuff very creepy. And then I think it takes like the spooky bump in the night type stuff from Paranormal Activity, and I think executes it better than Paranormal Activity does in a lot of respects, and gets into more fucked up territory than I think some of the American found footage stuff tends to go. But overall, it just really
all the dead fetuses.
Yeah, I mean, that's
like,
it's hardcore, and but overall, I think it just suffers from the length, and the pacing.
Yeah, I think that you remove 30 minutes from this, and this is maybe a 4.5 out of 5. I do think that it's kind of like when you go to like a really expensive restaurant, and like it takes a really long time for the food to get there, and then once it arrives, you're like, oh, like there like I can maybe taste like these extra 2 or 3 components that I wouldn't have gotten if I'd gone to like the less expensive restaurant where I know I'll get my food quickly. But even though it all emulsifies at the end and you get like a really great product, like does it make it better than the one that takes a little less time, has a little less components, but is still delicious?
See, for me, it was a mediocre restaurant that took a long time. Like, that time we went and got Indian food.
Yeah, I was literally I was picturing, and that was it, what was in my head was that time we went to get.
Long, and yeah, the food was good, but it was not worth the wait.
Not worth like 3 hours waiting.
Dude, it was crazy. We were there, at least 3 hours. Anyway.
But yeah,
I think that's a fair point.
Yeah.
So I did want to kind of read a little bit and see if you guys agree or disagree with some of these things that other people have said about the movie. Writer Megan Negrich noted that the film weaves together a complex story of curses, demons, and the forgotten with strong attention paid to atmospheric tension and the slow-building narrative in order to pursue a more subtle and highly effective horror experience. Megan Navarro from Bloody Disgusting emphasized the film's methodical storytelling. For many, it works. For others, it'll drag without a satisfying payoff to merit the pacing. Wherever you fall on the spectrum of enjoyment, Noroi's place in horror remains fascinating. So, I think it really just is going to depend on your level of patience, how into the Japanese folklore and like the culture of this. Because, it really, I think if you were... For a Japanese audience, I think a lot of the beats, like the guy with the tinfoil hat guy and how goofy he is and all of the media talk show stuff would make a lot more sense for somebody who's in that culture. And to us, it feels a little bit weird and extraneous.
Well, we're not big on curses, I guess. And I feel like if you look at some of the biggest movies that come out of Japan as far as horror goes, you get the Grudge, the Curse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or Ju-on the Curse.
Yeah, the Ring is a curse.
Is a curse. This
Yeah.
is a curse. Like
These is
This is
cursed.
cursed. Yeah.
So yeah. So when Japan saw the Mummy, it was like, yeah, that makes sense.
So I'm like looking at the monitor here, and it's like, I was like, ding, 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 like all the light bulbs hit at the same, like one after another. That we all were like, we could say "This is cursed." This is great.
So maybe that's part of it, and I think that probably is part of it. We don't have that same superstition regarding that sort of thing, at least where we're from, or maybe with our generation. But so I'm wondering if that cultural aspect is more prevalent in Japan, and so maybe this movie hits a little bit differently for people in Japan.
Well, it sounds like the overall consensus is that similar to what we were saying with Saw earlier, there's some really cool ideas in this. There's some pretty fire moments that are really fucked up and scary, but maybe not worth the amount of caffeine you have to intake to get all the way through it without falling asleep. Because I had told you guys off mic that I think, I tried maybe 3 or 4 times to get through this. It's been on Shudder forever, and I kept trying to get through it because I had heard Stuckman say how great it was, and I just would fall asleep every time, like trying to get through those several, like what feels like false starts in the beginning, where you just keep seeing a bunch of random shit going on. But I would still recommend checking it out. This isn't something with like McPherson necessarily, where I would say like you can just skip that and that's fine. Like there may be people who check this out and
I
are
forgot
just,
about that movie.
yeah, right.
Yeah, we watched it 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, Chuck commented and was like, "Ooh, I love a good found footage. I haven't seen McPherson," and I was like, "You don't really need to see McPherson. You can skip it." But this, I think there is an audience for it, and I do think there are people who are probably going to be a lot more into this than we were. But I'm still glad that we checked it out, just because it, mixed things up a little bit.
I would almost be more interested now that I've seen it to its conclusion to go back and see what ties together and see if maybe it's less disparate feeling and maybe it does incorporate better earlier on.
I think
we're not paying attention.
I think we can cut stuff. We can make our own cut of it. I think it'd be easy to cut certain parts of this out to make it tighter.
Yeah, you could probably cut a lot of the like repetitive like talk show bits and things and just really focus this and get it down to 90 minutes if not shorter, and I think it would work a lot better. Well, let's slide over to a little bit more familiar territory when it comes to found footage and things that spook the American general audience. So in 2007, a little film
Directed by Oren
Pelly called Paranormal Activity
Bum, bum, bum.
dropped, and we mentioned in our Saw bonus episode that this is the movie that officially dethroned the Saw franchise from the highest grossing Halloween movie yearly franchise, and this took over for several years. Never quite, as of yet, got to 10 movies like Saw has gotten to, but they ran this for a few years.
A phenomenon. I was working at a theater when this came out. It was one of those things where we had to request it. I think we've talked about that on the show. And then eventually we got it, and I saw it opening night, and that shit was packed. I had to sit in like the front section. It's like, whatever, I'm going, I don't care. And then, it was packed for a while. One of my friends, I convinced it was a true story. So he was like, "That's fucking crazy, man."
Well, and somehow they were able to pull that ruse on a lot of people with this one, just like with Blair Witch, where there were a lot of people who were convinced that this was actual footage of a real haunting. And I remember the ad campaign for this was all of the people in the night vision in the theater, like, check out how fucking scared everybody is. And that became kind of a staple of horror marketing for quite a while after that. You still see it occasionally with new horror movies where it's just like, ah, my popcorn's everywhere. I'm like, you fucking wasting all those snacks. You know how expensive concessions are?
I feel like this was the resurgence of this genre where, you know, we had it with Blair Witch and it didn't really take off.
Oh, after 2007. This is when the found footage boom started.
Yeah, because then I think, when's Cloverfield?
Is it 2008?
2008, I think, yeah. It's like right after this.
So it's like right after. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so like you said, this is directed by Oren Peli. This movie is also the origin of Blumhouse. We had mentioned with Blair Witch that Jason Blum was working for Miramax at the time for the Weinstein Company, and
Womp womp.
yeah, he was an executive there. He had passed on the Blair Witch Project, so when this crossed his table, he was like, I'm not going to make that fucking mistake again, and he jumped on getting behind this. Not only Jason Blum, but Steven Spielberg was heavily involved in getting this in front of eyes.
And I think Spielberg, if I remember this correctly, he helped them kind of tweak the ending.
Yeah, so it was originally shot on a $15,000 budget using home video equipment, which we get some of the classic found footage staples early on in the film of like them testing the equipment and all that shit. But was shot on a $15,000 budget, and then they were like, "This is great. Ending needs to be bigger." And so when Spielberg got involved, they injected $200,000 into just shooting the 5-minute sequence that the film ends with.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
$200,000.
Yeah, so there are 3 or 4 different variations of the ending of this movie. I don't remember for sure what the version I saw originally was, because this is crazy to think about. I watched a cam of this movie. If I recall correctly.
You watched found footage of found footage?
Yeah, so I watched found footage of found. So yeah, I was like really incepted into this whole found footage thing.
You're like, man, this is really great.
But I remember watching it. On a laptop.
Oh God, you just that era laptop even.
Yeah, like a probably like a 17-inch HP laptop, and in complete darkness with my sister sitting on my bed, and we were shitting our pants scared during it, which is surprising because now I, not to get too ahead of myself, think this movie is boring as fuck. But
I disagree. I don't think it's boring as fuck. I do think that it does have some pacing issues. It does take a while to actually start getting going, where I'm like, let's go already.
Well,
and I enjoy this movie, but I think that if you sit down and you set the mood, you get everything off, like you're saying, watch it in the dark, I think it is an effective movie.
Yeah, no, and I think that I'll totally admit that I think the reason I find this movie relatively boring is just because it's the classic, so many variations of this thing have been done since then and have put more interesting spins or added little things to it, that this feels so vanilla. Yeah, exactly. In comparison. But yeah, if I can try to put myself back in the shoes like I just did of when I first saw it on a laptop, I vividly remember how scared I was, which obviously is a sign that this movie does have things going for it. Like, it is a scary movie, and obviously the success of this franchise going forward and creating the Blumhouse model and creating Blumhouse, like, this is the movie that made Jason Blum go, cool, I'm making my own studio to do this thing where I put 15 or less, $1,000 into a movie and make, like this one did, $193.4 million on its 15,000 plus the 215,000 for that ending. But yeah, Oren
Peli has only directed one other movie after this, but he did produce Insidious, which we talked about last month, and you can see his influence.
Yeah, his other movie was, I think, another found footage, Area 51. Yeah, and then he's produced all the Insidiouses, all of the Paranormal Activities. He produced Lords of Salem, Chernobyl Diaries, was executive producer on that show, The River.
I liked that show. I only watched some of it, but some of that shit was, they go to like the forest with all hanging dolls.
Yeah.
It's fucking scary as shit, dude.
But yeah, he shot this in his own house. Just like
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Used some of the budget to remodel his house, to like take some of the carpets out from upstairs and like make it so that they could do some of the scenes, like the footprints and all that stuff. So yeah, super bare bones production on this. And originally when he was pitching this movie to studios, I think it was Paramount. Yeah, because Paramount's the one that puts all these out. They said, cool, we love it. We want to remake it with real movie stars with a bigger budget. And what we'll do is we'll put this version as a special feature on the DVD.
Dumb. That would have been dumb.
Yeah.
Because part of, like we talked about, was this might be real. And the fact that these two people were completely unknowns only lends to that.
Oh yeah, it was DreamWorks, which is also weird that DreamWorks was the ones that were involved with this. But yeah, they wanted to remake it, and yeah, it was because of the response to the screenings. When they first started screening it, they noticed that people were getting up and leaving, and they were like, "Fuck, our movie sucks." Like people were leaving because it sucks. And then when they'd go ask the people, they were like, "No, I was just so freaked out that I couldn't stay in the theater." And they realized like, "Oh, we have something here,
Yeah,
and we should keep it the way that it is outside of tweaking that ending."
I mean, we talked a little bit about the pacing in this one, and then really my other biggest problem with the movie is it Micah? I always say it wrong.
Mika.
He says Mika, which I mean, I know it's his name, but that's wrong.
So, no, he and she both say Mika.
Mika, yeah.
when the guy shows up to like talk to them about like spirits and stuff, even like he's like Mika, like he doesn't believe that this is how it's being pronounced.
Yeah, he's kind of a dick, which I guess I didn't realize before.
Yeah,
and I was like, yeah, you're pretty much awful, and all of this is basically your fault.
Yeah, so we get set up pretty quickly that Katie has had a history of some sort of paranormal activity in her family.
Oh, shit. That's why it's called that.
Crazy, right? How those things fucking, it's like poetry. It rhymes. And so she has some history, which we get into in the sequels about, and we get really into all that stuff and over-explain everything. Like everything has
over-explain and under-explain it.
Right? Yeah. So she talks about how like ever since she was a kid, she's had some creepy shit happening to her, and Mika gets this new camera, and he's like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna document shit. But the whole time he basically just gaslights her and makes fun of her and doesn't take her seriously about any of it. And I was like, a demon. And I'm like, okay, so then why are you filming this outside of just like, oh, you're going to show your friends that you're a fucking douche to your girlfriend?
Yeah.
Like, what are you getting out of this? If you don't believe her, then you're not expecting to get ghosts on camera. So like, what is your reasoning behind filming this outside of just being a weirdo? So yeah, he's not a very likable character. I don't think that their acting is bad though. I think they're pretty good in the movie, all things considered.
Yeah, I mean,
for the most part.
Yeah. It is what it is.
Well, and I think Katie does most of the heavy lifting in terms of, like actually being the main part of all the spooky shit that happens. But we get something that's a little bit different from Blair Witch in terms of the way this is shot. It's a lot more stable and a lot of cameras that are up in corners. It reminds me of what the big boom of interrogation YouTube channels, like criminal
JCS.
interrogation, like JCS, where the interrogation rooms always have the camera up in the corner like this. That's what it reminded me of. But I think for people who maybe got sick during Blair Witch, this is probably a lot more their speed in terms of found footage, and that may be another reason why people gravitated a bit more toward Paranormal Activity as opposed to Blair Witch.
Yeah, I feel like the acting performances specifically, they remind me a lot of something like Absentia, where it's like it's enough to service the plot and make it real enough, but like no one here is winning an award.
There's one sequence where I was like, oh my god, this is bad, and it's when Mika catches Katie having gotten up in the night and gone downstairs and sat in the chair, and then the next day she's supposed to be like believably acting like she doesn't remember what happened, and she's just like, oh my gosh, like I don't remember, that wasn't me, I didn't do, oh my gosh, and I was just like, okay, I can tell that you obviously as an actress remember getting up and doing this sequence and everything, then she has to act like, and I was like, okay, maybe that's a little bit too much of a challenge. To act like you were possessed by a demon and don't remember any of the shit that happened.
What did you think about it this time around? This wasn't your first experience with it, right?
It was not my first experience, but I watched it. I watched it a couple of years post the hype, and I wasn't a fan of it when I first saw it.
Shit. Because you didn't think it was scary, or
Or just because you were a fucking hipster.
No, I think the biggest thing is that it, like, by that time, 2 or 3 years in the horror realm,
There were like
there are a million
2
things
dozen found footage movies that have come out since then.
or that have done that same thing, but not as vanilla and added additional things, and those things were more enticing for me. So I'm still kind of in that camp. Like, it is a very bare bones film, and it's like I said, it's literally just following 2 people and them with their fucking Paranormal Activity shenanigans. Cool. Like, it's effective in that way. And if you give it the credit and the ability to scare you by removing some of the barriers of, like, watching it during the middle of the day or whatever, if you watch it at night, you turn all the lights out,
Put your fucking phone away,
and just focus on it, it can get you with the with the sound design and with the subtlety of the effects that are used to make all these things with these characters work. Like her getting dragged away in the middle of the night, legitimately terrifying.
Also, pretty much all of the effects in this movie are in camera, and and when you watch the behind the scenes stuff of them, like, having all the people dressed in like the all black and having to, with all the tethers attached to her and pulling her off the bed and then dragging her out into the hallway, and how they did all those effects, like, it's really cool. And like, that's creepy. I think the whole, like, putting the powder in the hallway and then seeing the footprints, that's all really well done. And I think it's just a movie that's it really hinges on your mindset and the environment, and obviously, like, a theater would be the best way to experience it, with everybody else, like, jumping out of their seats and pee-peeing.
Yes, I think similar to other things we've watched in the past, where I'm like, oh, that's not for me. The guy in 2023 who's seen 1,000 horror movies, that's not for me anymore. But I see the value, and I see all of the things that it spawned, and so it still is valuable for those reasons. And I think that that's how I personally feel about Paranormal Activity, is that it revitalized and changed the landscape of the found footage genre, and also of like the haunted house genre as well. So I'm thankful for those things, because there have been a ton of great movies that have come out since then. Obviously, things like Insidious would not exist if there weren't stories that kind of pave the way to make something like that.
Well, yeah, the way that, even down to, like, the way the house looks and some of the things that happen in terms of, like, what the ghost shenanigans are, and obviously Blum and Pelly being involved in Insidious, like, it definitely feels like one would not necessarily exist in the way that it does without the other.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's a really good point that I hadn't really thought of too much, is that the Paranormal Activity not only kickstarted the found footage thing, but also kind of brought back the haunted house thing. Because I think the last, like, spooky haunted house type thing that came out before that was maybe the House on Haunted Hill, or the Haunting,
like those 90s ones.
One of those ones that came, where it was like Owen Wilson and and
did the Ryan Reynolds Amityville come out?
Ooh, I want to say it was like 06 or 07.
So it was like right around the same time.
Yeah.
And to be fair, this is a much better film than that.
I haven't seen that in a long time, so I don't know. But
the only question that I had while watching this is that at one point you're watching the timestamp thing at the bottom, and Mika has his alarm set, and his alarm goes off and wakes him up at 6:14 a.m. And I'm like, who the fuck sets an alarm for 6:14? You set it for 6:15, or you set it for 6.
Maybe his time was not the same as his computer.
That's what I thought, but then later they, like, point out the timestamp, and he goes, like, it happened at this time, and it's because I thought, oh, maybe the timestamp doesn't match up with whatever, and then I was like, no, because later
I'm gonna let you in on the household that I grew up in. So when I was growing up in a tiny little town in Central Valley, California, my mom had this old ass alarm clock, and the button had broken off to reset the time. And so the only thing that she could set was the alarm. So the time was always off by a certain amount. And rather than buy a new alarm clock, she would just set that alarm clock for whatever actually made sense in real time. But it would always be off by like 10, 15 minutes. Or when the time would change, by a full hour and then some. So she was able to go back and reset the alarm, and so it would just be off by it would just be a random fucking number,
Like 613.
or stupid shit like that.
But in reality, 13.
but in reality, it's actually like 5:30 or whatever.
I got an alarm I set for 8:23.
So, I mean, I don't see how your mom's old ass broken alarm clock explains this obvious giant plot hole in the Paranormal Activity franchise. But I will say, when I was a kid,
Oh, how?
I'm joking. It's not that big a deal. When I was a kid, I got an alarm clock, a Spider-Man alarm clock. It was like a building and it had Spider-Man on top, and it would sing the Spider-Man theme song as an alarm. And the first night that I tried to use it, and I was in maybe like 4th grade or something. First night I tried to use it, I accidentally set it for like 2 hours earlier than I planned to, and it went off at like 5 a.m. or something, and I just fucking took the batteries out and never I was so mad that I just took the batteries out and was like, I'm never using this. So it was just a little decoration. Like I was like never using the alarm clock because I was so pissed that it woke me up that early.
I used to have an alarm clock that was powered by a potato, and it had a little figurine of me in the center of it.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to Alarm Clock Talk, our new side podcast.
That's
We're gonna make an application for it, and I think that rather than call it Alarm Clock Talk, we'll just call it TikTok.
Oh shit, dude. Well, we're ending the podcast because we just made $100 bazillion, and China has all of our personal information.
Stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. So, any final thoughts on this Paranormal Activity? Have you guys seen all of the sequels?
I've seen every single one, including Next to Kin.
I've only seen 2.
I've seen all of them except for, I believe, Next of Kin. I haven't seen that one yet, but I saw.
It's awful.
I saw Ghost Dimension. I saw the marked ones.
Yep.
Catherine Newton from Paranormal Activity 2 is Cassie in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, the blonde girl.
Oh shit.
Yeah. I was like, where the fuck do I recognize her from? And I looked her up, and it's because she's from Paranormal Activity.
Holy cow, that's cool. Good for her.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, yeah, I mean, I enjoy them all enough. I think some of them are better than others. There's parts of, I think, 3 that really scared me. There's some little girl gets pulled up by her hair, and I was like, oh, that's fucking scary. But for the most part, yeah, they all become repetitive, and they don't give you enough of the story that it makes any sense.
I'm just really riveted by whatever one they use an Xbox Connect for spooky shit in.
I don't know.
It's when they have all the like green laser dots all over.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
It's probably Ghost Dimension.
Probably.
That sounds fancy. Too fancy for me, anyway.
What if you could see the ghosts? That defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
But
we are gonna continue with Found Footage February next week.
Yeah.
And we're talking about
Unfriended.
And here we go. Ready? The Outwaters.
Fucking nailed it. Wish you guys could hear the behind the scenes of him trying to nail down the Outwaters. But yeah, I've been hearing a lot of hype, and I have no idea what the Outwaters is about outside of it supposedly being a really freaky found footage movie. I'm just
Freaky Found Footage.
Freaky Found Footage Friday.
Oh, it is Friday.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Found Footage Friday, Freaky February. Yeah, so we're going to be talking about the Outwaters and Unfriended, and that will wrap up Found Footage February, and then also over on our Creep Cult, we'll be wrapping up
the Saw
franchise with Jigsaw. So tune into both.
Yeah, and if you're looking for a better but not scary version of Unfriended, you could also watch Searching. Searching is pretty tight.
Searching is a dope movie.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh,
really good.
Cool. Well, let's check that out. Right on. Well, hey, see you next week. Thanks for listening and or watching, and we hope that you had a good time. I've been Tone.
I've been John.
And I've been Chain Rattle, Internet Darling Anthony.
Oh, whoa. That's crazy.
I've been Mika.
Oh, God. Keep it creepy.
Do something.